in this section of Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, we see that Krishna Das Kaviraj is continuing his detailed analysis of Lord Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his ecstatic symptoms of love of Krishna, and his description of the position of the gopis in her relationship with Krishna. Many persons, when they look at Vaishnavism or Chaitanya Vaishnavism, have a difficulty understanding the main point of this transcendental religion or cult, spiritual cult. Many persons misunderstand it to be some kind of sex religion or sex cult. That is because they're not hearing from a realized, authorized acharya. It is described in the Chandogya Upanishad, Acharyavan Purusho Veda, that one who has taken lessons and instructions from a bona fide acharya, he will understand the true meaning of the Vedas, of the scriptures. It is not simply an academic study, but it is by submissive hearing from a fully realized, fully liberated, fully cognizant acharya who is beyond the four defects of material existence. Now, this can be a little difficult to understand for a conditioned soul or neophytes, because they will think, well, everybody makes mistakes. How can anybody be free of mistakes? How can anybody be like this? What are you saying? What is this idea? This idea comes from the authorized Shastra, from the authorized scriptures. That is why the transcendental tradition of the Vaishnava Sampradayas is carried on by following these great authorities. In the Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna describes acharya upasanam saucham, that one has to worship, one has to surrender to the bona fide acharya. Now, the problem we have in Kali Yuga, and this is described by Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Sanatan Goswami in the Hare Bhakti Vilas, and Srila Prabhupada a few times quoted a very important verse. This is from the Padma Purana. This is a conversation between Lord Shiva and his good wife Parvati. He explains, Guravo Bahavo Shanti, Shishya Vittapahara Kaha. There are many gurus, Bahavo, many gurus who are very expert to take the money away, take the wealth away from the disciple. Shishya Vitta means the wealth of the disciple. Durlabha Sadgurur Devi, Shishya Santapaharakaha. But it's very rare to find a bona fide, authorized Vaishnavacharya who will take the Shantapa, the miseries of the disciple. Now, what does that mean? Well, Prabhupada explains nicely in many times in his books, in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, in the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. There are many persons who are pretending and posing as so-called gurus, so-called acharyas. Just like there is one purport in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta where Prabhupada explains that acharyas in Kali Yuga are very expert to exploit the wealth of the disciple. This is not the idea. This is not the purpose of acting as acharya. The whole idea of acting as acharya is to bring people to Lord Krishna. We do know from the writings of Bhaktivedanta Thakur that he gave elaborate instruction in his teachings, in his explanations of how to practice devotional service. It's quite significant from a historical perspective that Bhaktivedanta Thakur, who was a great scholar in Sanskrit, Bengali, English, Urdu. He knew like 4 or 5 languages. That he was the first acharya since Lord Chaitanya that preached in the English language. None of all the other acharyas, they either preached in Sanskrit or Bengali. But Bhaktivedanta Thakur took the science of Krishna consciousness, the science of bhakti as explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and brought it to an entire different level, because he was very educated. He was a magistrate, he was a judge, and he was dealing with all kinds of educated people in Calcutta, mixing up with many different groups. So he wrote the life of Lord Chaitanya and sent it to McGill University in 1896, which incidentally is also the birth year of our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. But Bhaktivedanta Thakur was the first one who started the publication of literatures. He never put too much attention on who was going to be the successor guru, who's going to be the Diksha guru, who was going to be the next zonal guru, all of these nonsense. No. His main approach was publish literatures and preach. And then he conveyed that same mentality, infused that same mentality with his son, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who also took up the preaching of Krishna consciousness, both in Bengali, Sanskrit, and English, and gave the Lord Chaitanya movement a very big push. Again, it's to be noted, there is no record anywhere of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada appointing a single successor or a group of successors. Prabhupada has explained this many times, and he lamented that the whole momentum, the whole powerful mission of Bhaktisiddhanta was thwarted, was adversely affected by this disease of everybody wanting to become acharya, wanting to be the big boss. Prabhupada refers in his purports of Caitanya-caritāmṛta to certain individual and one individual who tried to become a high court acharya by the decision of some high court. Prabhupada mentions a real Vaishnava acharya is self-effulgent, and there's no need of any high court judgment. Why are we speaking of this? Because we see the same tendency of neophytes or sahajias posing as acharyas who are using the courts to harass Vaishnavas, to harass devotees. Krishna consciousness cannot be spread by this kind of nonsensical behavior. Just like Bhaktivedanta Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used the modern press, what Prabhupada used to call Briyat Mridanga. We all know there's many references to Srila Prabhupada explaining that the musical instrument, the mridanga, the drum, you can hear it for a few blocks. But the Briyat Mridanga, the press, can be heard all around the world. This was the preaching method. And why are we doing this? We're doing this, I mean, we keep repeating this point about preserving the legacy, the integrity of Srila Prabhupada's teachings. Because what happens when you start changing, not only is it disrespectful to the acharya who has written this, it's like it transgresses the fundamental rule of Vaishnavism, that you never change the words of the acharya. This is unheard of. I have spent quite a bit of time in South India. And basically, with the Ramanuja and Madhva Sampradaya, they have a principle that you can never touch, never change the Sanskrit writing of these great acharyas like Madhvacharya, Jayatirtha, Vyasatirtha, Raghavendra Swami. They have hundreds of acharyas. The whole Sampradaya is dedicated to fighting Mayavadis and impersonalism. Same thing with the Ramanujas. I had an experience one time where the chief priests of the Sri Rangam temple, Rangaraj Bhatta, took us to see the deity of Lord Ranganath and explaining us the story of Vibhishana, the brother of Ravana, had taken the deity to bring it all the way to Sri Lanka. But the only stipulation is you cannot take it down. You have to carry it all the way to Sri Lanka. So at one point, some way or other, he had to use the bathroom, and he put the deity down, and the deity did not move. The deity stayed there in that same spot in Sri Rangam. So they've had many great acharyas following Ramanuja. And one such acharya was named Vedanta Deshika, who basically, because there was a lot of challenges from the Mayavadis, from the impersonalists after the departure of Ramanuja, and it was constant. So this Vedanta Deshika, who was based in Kanchipuram in northern Tamil Nadu, came down to Sri Rangam, and he was arguing, defeating the Mayavadis. And his writings are very famous in that sampradaya, very, very detailed. He is the author of that famous book, Mayavada Shatadushani, 108 Faults of the Mayavadi Philosophy. So this priest, Venkat Raja, Rangaraj Bhatta, took us to see the temple, and he pointed out in some of the columns, some of the writings of Vedanta Desika that was on copper plates, brass plates, covering some of the columns. And at one point I asked him, I says, anybody ever tried to change this, like change the writing or adjust the Sanskrit? And he blocked his ears. He says, oh no, no one can touch. No one can touch. Because the understanding is that these great acharyas are not ordinary men. They're not conditioned souls subject to the defects of material existence. And this is a very important point, because we see in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta itself, our Krishnadas Kaviraj at one point, let me find the quote exactly, that he mentions that great personalities like Vyasadeva are not subject to the frailties of conditioned souls. These 4 defects of conditioned souls. I'm finding the verse here so we can read and discuss this. And this is extremely important, because there seems to be a misunderstanding sometime when some devotees or scholars trying to analyze the behavior and various statements of Srila Prabhupada. But how do we understand the position of such persons like Srila Prabhupada? Because persons may say, well, sometime he mixed up Sanskrit verses, sometime he missed a line in a Sanskrit verse, or sometime he may have fallen asleep. So this is very important. We are reading here from Caitanya-caritāmṛta, trying to find it, Adi Lila, I believe it's chapter 2, text 86. It says, Brahm pramada vipralipsa karana patava arsha vigna vakye nahi dosha esaba. Mistakes, illusions, cheating, and defective perception do not occur in the sayings of the authoritative sages. Purport. Srimad Bhagavatam has listed the avatars, the plenary expansions of the Purusha, and Lord Krishna appears among them. But the Bhagavatam further explains Lord Krishna's specific position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since Lord Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, reason and argument establish that his position is always supreme. Had Krishna been a plenary expansion of Narayana, the original verse would have been differently composed. Indeed, its order would have been reversed. But there cannot be mistakes, illusion, cheating, or imperfect perception in the words of liberated sages. Therefore, there is no mistake in this statement that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Sanskrit statements of Srimad Bhagavatam are all transcendental sounds. Srila Vyasadeva revealed these statements after perfect realization, and therefore they are perfect, for liberated sages like Vyasadeva never commit errors in their rhetorical arrangements. Unless one accepts this fact, there is no use in trying to obtain help from the revealed scriptures. Brahm refers to false knowledge or mistakes, such as accepting a rope as a snake or an oyster shell as gold. Pramada refers to inattention or misunderstanding of reality. And vipralipsa is the cheating propensity. Karanapatava refers to imperfectness of the material senses. There are many examples of such imperfection. The eyes cannot see that which is very distant or very small. One cannot even see his own eyelid, which is the closest thing to his eye. And if one is disturbed by a disease like jaundice, he sees everything to be yellow. Similarly, the ears cannot hear distant sounds. Since the personality of Godhead and his plenary portions and self-realized devotees are all transcendently situated, they cannot be misled by such deficiencies. So this is a very important purport. Prabhupada explains, liberated sages like Vyasadeva never commit errors in their rhetorical arrangements. Unless one accepts this fact, there is no use in trying to obtain help from the revealed scriptures. In the Sandarbhas of Jiva Goswami, in one place he explains that unless one accepts the achintya shakti, the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is impossible to understand his position. Similarly, when we try to understand the activities of a pure Vaishnava, like Srila Prabhupada, a liberated soul like Srila Prabhupada, a complete person who is always in touch with Krishna 24 hours a day, we should not find fault, even though we may not understand, even though it may not conform to our educational upbringing or woke training or whatever it may be. Acharyas are beyond the realm of conditioned souls. Well, I can keep talking. There is another very important purport, also in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, with the same verse. This is in Adi Lila, chapter 7, text 107. And Prabhupada in the purport mentions, the Vedic process is to hear from authority. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text number 2, the Lord says, Evam paramparapraptam imam raja rishayo viduhu. The supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. We have to hear not from a telephone, but from an authorized person, for it is he who has real knowledge. So again, the same point that Prabhupada is making. There's also another very important purport in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 3, text number 2. Canto 8, Chapter 3, text number 2. Prabhupada explains in the purport, the material body is meant for sense enjoyment, whereas the spiritual body engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Therefore, a devotee who engages in the service of the Supreme Lord and who constantly thinks of him should never be considered to have a material body. It is therefore enjoined, Gurushu Naramatihi. One should stop thinking of the spiritual master as an ordinary human being with a material body. Arche Vishnu Shiladihi. Everyone knows that the deity in the temple is made of stone, but to think that the deity is merely stone is an offense. Similarly, to think that the body of the spiritual master consists of material ingredients is offensive. Atheists think that devotees foolishly worship a stone statue as God and an ordinary man as the guru. Again, very, very important instruction from Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.